You hear your name before you even see the faces saying it. A muffled exchange behind a half-closed door, the kind of low, sharp whisper that tells you they're not praising you, they're predicting your failure. You stand there for a second too long, frozen between walking away and bursting in, and in that suspended moment you finally understand something cruel. People don't wait for you to fall, they rehearse it. They speak about you like you're an unfinished rumor, a cautionary tale, a quiet disappointment they saw coming long before you did. You feel the weight in your chest before you feel it in your legs, a sinking realization that the laughter, soft, disguised, careful, belongs to people who once claimed to be on your side. And yet here you are, listening to them carve you apart with fragments of sentences, like surgeons working without anesthesia. You close the door gently, not because you want to hide your presence, but because you don't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing you heard. You walk down the hallway, each step echoing louder than the last, like the building itself is accusing you of thinking too highly of yourself. The air feels heavier, colder, as if the betrayal has altered the temperature of the world around you. It's strange how quickly trust can rot. One minute you think you have allies, the next you realize you were surrounded by spectators waiting for the moment your footing slipped. And when it finally does, even slightly, they don't help. They document. They replay every mistake in their minds, cataloging your weakness like archivists of your downfall. On the way home, their words replay without permission. You try to silence them, but whispers have sharp edges. They cut deeper than shouts. They stay longer. They make you question whether every person who smiled at you was simply waiting to expose you when you weren't in the room. You feel your pulse in your throat, an uneven, anxious rhythm that reminds you how fragile confidence truly is. The city lights blur as you walk, turning into streaks that look almost like warnings painted across the night sky. You tell yourself you're overreacting, but some part of you knows you're not. The betrayal landed too cleanly. It felt rehearsed, precise, almost strategic. You step inside your room and shut the door, softer than before, as if the silence itself might shatter. You sit on the edge of your bed, elbows on your knees, head resting in your hands. For the first time in a long time, you feel the crack beneath your own armor. The truth is brutal. You weren't defeated by an enemy. You were wounded by people who had access to your unguarded moments. That's what makes it sting. That's what makes it feel like the fall didn't start today. Only the realization did. You trace back through memories, through conversations, through subtle glances you once dismissed. Patterns emerge. A truth forms. They never underestimated you accidentally. They underestimated you with intention. As if shrinking you made them feel taller. You breathe slowly, painfully. Something shifts in your chest, not strength, not yet, but awareness. The kind that feels like the first rumble before an earthquake, because now you know the truth. They whispered your name expecting you to break. And in this moment, with your hands trembling and your heartbeat unsteady, you almost do. You don't talk much during this part of your life, not because you're weak, but because the noise inside you is louder than anything the world could throw at you. You move through your days in a strange half-shadow, feeling every doubt like a hand around your throat. Nights stretch longer, heavier, almost metallic in their stillness. You lie awake replaying every mistake, every moment someone dismissed you, every time a door closed right as you reached for the handle. Their voices linger like smoke, reminding you that you were never invited, never expected to rise, never meant to be more than background noise in their perfectly curated lives. You've never been more silent, yet never more aware of how much they've tried to bury you. This is the kind of darkness that doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quietly, soft-footed, settling into you until it becomes the only language you speak. You start noticing patterns: who changed when you fell, who stepped back, who stepped on you because it felt safe. Even the ones you trusted tighten their tone when your name comes up, as though speaking about you risks revealing something they don't want exposed. You begin to understand the ancient truth you once ignored, that a person's real face shows up when they think you're no longer useful. There's no comfort here, no hand reaching in, only the sharp realization that you're standing in a storm that was engineered long before you ever sensed it forming. You try to move forward, but every step feels like sinking into cold mud. Your thoughts turn heavier, your chest tighter. You start to question everything, your abilities, your identity, your purpose. The world feels indifferent, almost predatory, studying you like prey that's too exhausted to run. You move through crowds without being seen, and the invisibility stings more than any insult. You used to reach out for reassurance, but now the silence answers you faster than anyone ever did. You're confronted with the truth that people love you most when you need nothing. The moment you break, the warmth fades, replaced by distance and careful neutrality. You learn to stop expecting rescue. You learn that no one hears you when you whisper for help, they only hear you when you roar. Still, something strange begins to shift. The more isolated you become, the clearer everything feels. The darkness stops being a threat and starts becoming a mirror. You notice your own patterns, your own fears, the weaknesses you've left unattended for years. You stop blaming the world and start observing it, dissecting it, memorizing its rules with the precision of a strategist preparing for a quiet war. Your mind sharpens, your senses heighten. The emotional chaos you once drowned in becomes a blueprint for control. You start to see betrayal as information, rejection as redirection, and silence as the birthplace of power. And somewhere in that suffocating stillness, you realize the truth they never wanted you to understand. The darkness wasn't sent to destroy you. It was sent to rewrite you. You don't remember the exact second it happened, only the heaviness before it, those nights when your chest felt like a collapsing star and every thought folded in on itself. You were drifting through days that looked the same, carrying the weight of words spoken behind your back, replaying the cruelties delivered with polite smiles. You kept telling yourself to endure, to stay calm, to pretend it didn't matter. But the truth is, something was cracking inside you, quietly, like the first fracture on a frozen lake. You tried to silence it. You tried to act normal. Yet in the quietest hour, when the world stopped watching, you felt something ancient stirring in you, something that refused to die in the darkness where others left you. It wasn't joy, and it wasn't hope. It was sharper than that, colder. A small pulse of awareness that you were not meant to stay broken forever. It rose in your chest like a warning, like a question you had avoided for too long. Why do you keep shrinking yourself for people who never bothered to understand you? Why do you let their judgments shape a future they were never going to help you build? You felt exposed, almost cornered, as if your own conscience had stepped out of the shadows and held your chin firmly in its hand. It didn't speak with comfort. It spoke with accusation. You've been waiting for permission to rise when no one around you even wants you to stand. You sat there, breathing slowly, while the world outside continued as if your awakening wasn't shaking the ground beneath you. The spark didn't arrive like a beautiful revelation. It arrived like confrontation, a reckoning you could no longer outrun. You began to replay every betrayal, not to drown in it, but to study it, to understand the pattern you had ignored. People underestimated you not because you were weak, but because you taught them you wouldn't fight back. You realized you'd been letting them read you like an open page while you never once bothered to read them in return. That imbalance ends now. Your heartbeat steadied, not faster, steadier, as if your body understood something your mind was only beginning to grasp. Power doesn't start with anger or revenge. It starts with clarity. The moment you understand your own silence is not emptiness but strategy. The moment you understand suffering is not punishment but preparation. You weren't being destroyed all this time. You were being trained, shaped, tempered. Every rejection had cleared the path ahead, stripping away the people who would have collapsed the moment your rise demanded loyalty instead of gossip. A strange calm settled in your bones, the kind that comes only when you stop fighting yourself. You stood up, not dramatically, not triumphantly, but with the quiet resolve of someone who has finally chosen their own side. And in that stillness, something clicked. A shift, a promise. They won't see you coming because they never believed you could wake up like this. They never imagined the fire they tried to extinguish would ignite from within, forming a light they can't control, predict, or silence. And as that spark took its first breath, you knew one thing this time: you rise with intention. You rise before the world stirs, not because discipline feels noble, but because silence is the only place where your rebuilt identity can breathe. There was a time when you waited for validation, when you needed someone to say you were on the right path. Now you move without witnesses, you work without applause. You sharpen yourself in the dark, where no one can interfere or take credit. Every morning feels like stepping into a cold river, a shock that reminds you you're alive, aware, and dangerous in ways you've never allowed yourself to be. The version of you that once begged for approval has become a ghost you no longer recognize, a faint outline fading behind the steel rising in your spine. You study your own patterns the way ancient generals studied the terrain before a war. You circle your weaknesses like a predator testing the perimeter of a wounded animal. The old habits try to drag you back, hesitation, self-comparison, the echo of their whispered doubts. But you confront them with a quiet ruthlessness that would terrify the person you used to be. You watch the world move in noise and impulse while you operate in intention and precision. The gap between who you were and who you are becomes a chasm, widening with every disciplined choice you make. You're no longer surviving their betrayal. You're converting it into fuel, reshaping the contours of your mind with a severity reserved for those who refuse to be small again. You stop speaking unless your words serve purpose. You stop chasing people who only clapped when you were small enough to pose no threat. Your silence becomes a weapon, sharp, unsettling, unpredictable. It's in this silence that you train, study, and build. You read with a hunger that borders on violent. You move your body as if sculpting armor onto your own frame. You dissect your failures until their meaning collapses and reveals the blueprint underneath. The climb isn't glamorous, but it's sacred. Each step is a ceremony, each sacrifice a vow, each bruise a reminder of the empire you're constructing inside yourself. The world still underestimates, but it's becoming harder for them to pretend they don't feel the shift in the air. People sense something changing. They watch you like a storm forming in the distance. They whisper less now, not out of respect, but out of caution. You don't rise with arrogance. You rise with calculation, with an inner stillness that threatens the chaos of those who wanted you weak. Your discipline becomes your legend long before your name reaches any room. The truth is simple. You are no longer responding to the forces around you. You are becoming one. And while they navigate the world blindfolded by their own comfort, you move like someone who has seen the map from above. Every choice is deliberate. Every hour is claimed, not wasted. You're not seeking revenge. You're establishing dominance over your former limits. This climb is not about winning in their world. It's about building a world where their opinions hold no currency. And with every step upward, you feel it more clearly. The power they once mocked is beginning to pulse beneath your skin, steady and undeniable. With each disciplined breath, another layer of your former self dissolves, revealing a sharper instinct, a colder clarity, and a rising force that even you are only beginning to understand, but cannot restrain anymore in the shadows. You feel the shift long before anyone else senses it. It begins as a quiet pressure beneath your ribs, the kind that tells you something inside is waking up after years of being stepped on. You've spent so long buried in the noise of other people's opinions that you almost don't recognize the silence inside you now. A silence that feels like sharpened steel. The world hasn't changed. The rooms you walk into are the same. The people are the same. But you're carrying something different. Their whispers don't sting anymore. They tremble, they hesitate, they pause the moment you raise your eyes, because the version of you they thought they understood is gone, shed like old skin that once held you back. And what's standing in its place is someone they didn't prepare for. You begin to notice the way people watch you now, not with warmth, not with generosity, but with calculation. They're studying you, replaying past conversations in their heads, wondering what they overlooked. You move differently. You speak with less noise, fewer words, but each one lands like a warning. Your silence no longer reads as insecurity. It reads as strategy, as if you're listening for something beneath the surface, something they don't hear. And in a way, you are. You're listening for patterns, motives, shifts in tone. You're listening for the smallest crack in their armor. You've learned that power isn't found in being loud. Power is found in being unreadable, untouchable, unbothered. And the moment you embraced that, the ground began to tilt in your favor. Your first breakthrough isn't public. It doesn't come with applause. It arrives in the form of a choice, the choice to stop lowering yourself to fit their expectations. You no longer rush to explain yourself. You no longer chase validation like oxygen. You pull back your energy like a blade being sheathed. You move with intention instead of desperation. and the world feels it. People who once dismissed you now ask careful questions. People who once underestimated you now watch their tone. You can sense the shift even in their posture. The slight lean forward, the forced smile, the eyes that flicker away too quickly. They don't know what changed. They only know they're no longer standing above you. Your second breakthrough is quieter, but deeper. It's the night you realize that betrayal didn't break you. It built the architecture of your future mind. Every lie taught you to read shadows. Every disappointment taught you to create your own light. Every rejection taught you how to walk alone without collapsing. Pain didn't just strengthen you, it carved you into someone precise, someone controlled, someone dangerous to underestimate. You start moving through life like a strategist instead of a survivor, seeing paths others overlook, sensing motives behind smiles, understanding the weight of silence between words. It's not paranoia, it's awareness. An awareness earned through endurance, not ego. And without announcing it, without warning anyone, you rise. Not in a dramatic, explosive surge, but steadily, relentlessly, like a tide that cannot be held back. You excel in places they thought you'd fail. You remain calm in situations where they expected you to break. You walk into rooms that once felt hostile and watch them shift around your presence, as if adjusting to a new center of gravity. They whisper your name again, but not like before. Now it carries caution, curiosity, even fear. Because a no, though they'll never admit it out loud, that you're no longer playing the same game they tried to trap you in. You've outgrown their battlefield, and the silence you once drowned in has become the throne you stand on. You feel the shift long before the world acknowledges. It starts as a quiet tightening in your chest, a steadiness that replaces the frantic beating that once betrayed your doubt. There was a time when you walked into rooms hoping to be tolerated, praying to be understood, terrified of being exposed as the one who wasn't enough. That version of you is gone. Now the ground seems to adjust itself beneath your steps, as if the world has been forced to recognize a presence it once dismissed. You no longer chase approval. You no longer scan faces for reassurance. You move with the calm certainty of someone who has survived their own burial and learned to breathe in the silence beneath the dirt. People sense it before they can explain it. Their eyes linger too long trying to decipher the shift they don't have the vocabulary for. They remember the moment you fell, the moment they laughed, the moment they turned your name into a whispered punchline. They remember because it comforted them. But now those same whispers have changed shape. They travel differently, heavier, slower, carrying a tension that warns others to tread carefully. Your name no longer belongs to mockery. It belongs to curiosity, to caution, to the unsettling truth that you rose when you were supposed to stay broken. And beneath every glance you receive, you can feel the tremor of unspoken questions. How did you survive? What did you become out there in the dark? You know the answer even if they don't. Pain sharpened you. Rejection armored you. Silence became your training ground. Every night you spent alone built a discipline others will never understand, because their strength depends on witnesses, on applause, on someone watching. Yours grew in isolation, forged in the kind of quiet that can either ruin a person or remake them. While they chased distractions, you studied pattern. While they bragged about small victories, you learned how to predict moves before they were made. And while they slept comfortably, believing you posed no threat, you taught your mind to move like a blade in the dark. Precise, patient, untraceable. Now you stand in the aftermath of that transformation, and the world feels smaller around you. Conversations halt when you enter. People weigh their words as if every sentence could expose something they wish to hide. It's not power born from intimidation. It's power carved from clarity. You see through intentions now, the cracks in their confidence that tremble beneath their performance. They sense it too, even if they never admit it. They thought you were climbing back to where you fell from. They didn't realize you were climbing somewhere higher, somewhere they don't have the endurance to reach. And somewhere, behind closed doors, your name is spreading like a coded message. It slips between lips with a strange mix of respect and unease, because they can feel it, that the person they once underestimated has stepped into a realm where perception becomes advantage and silence becomes strategy. You don't just enter rooms anymore. You haunt them before you arrive. You stand at a point your past self would never recognize. The version of you that once trembled under the weight of rejection has dissolved, leaving behind someone carved by fire and rebuilt in silence. You move differently now, slower in some ways, sharper in others, as if every step is placed with the awareness that the ground itself might be listening. The noise that once drowned your thoughts has quieted. In its place is a steadiness that feels almost ancient, something earned through wounds no one saw and victories no one applauded. Those who used to speak your name with carelessness now avoid saying it at all, afraid that doing so might summon a force they're not ready to face. They didn't witness the nights you clawed your way back from the brink, the moments you stitched yourself together with nothing but will, but they feel the aftermath. Power has a scent, and whether they admit it or not, they smell it on you. You've learned that survival has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with precision. You read people not from paranoia, but from experience, each betrayal a page in a manual you never asked to write. You recognize shifts in tone, inconsistencies in behavior, the way someone's eyes twitch when they fear you might see the truth behind their smile. It isn't supernatural. It's the result of being broken in ways they've never been tested. You see patterns now, connections hidden beneath casual conversations, and you store them quietly. There's no need to threaten, no need to boast. Silence has become your sharpest weapon. It unsettles them more than anything you could say, because silence implies knowledge. It implies strategy. It implies you're thinking 3 moves ahead while they're still celebrating a win you allowed them to have. This is why your name carries weight in rooms you haven't entered. Not because you seek attention, but because you stopped chasing it. You understand now that the world respects outcomes, not intention. The people who once dismissed you are adjusting their tone, pretending they always knew you'd rise. You let them speak. Their words don't touch you anymore. You've outgrown the need for validation in the same way a soldier outgrows the need to explain the scars beneath the armor. You built yourself in the shadows, and the shadows remember their architect. There's a calmness around you that unnerves those who once had power over your emotions. You don't react the way you used to, you calculate. You don't crumble, you redirect, and they sense it. The quiet dominance, the unspoken certainty that you no longer break the way ordinary people do. Some admire it, others fear it, all of them feel it. You've become the version of yourself that your younger self prayed for, but doubted could ever exist. Not perfect, not invincible, but aware of what you can endure, aware of what you can become, aware of the worlds you can bend with discipline and time. And as the world whispers your name with curiosity, envy, or caution, you walk forward knowing one truth: you didn't just rise, you transformed.